Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Mommyingwhilemuslim podcast with your co-hosts Zaiba Hassan and Uzma Jaffrey. This is Uzma. Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
And this is Zaiba. Welcome to another fun Facebook Live event, Uzma. I think we're finally getting the hang of this.
Yeah, it's only because we have a genius behind the screen, Joe Balian, making it happen. Thank you, Joe.
Definitely appreciate
Um,
it. So,
so,
but we should first of all start off by saying this is adult topic for the next couple of
oh
weeks.
yes, our
So
disclaimer.
likely not good for our younger audiences. Because we're going to be doing mommy talk now. So I just wanted to say that before we delved into the topic today.
I always used to hate that when the parents kicked us out of the room because it was mommy talk time, but yeah, you don't want them to be
Now
here
you
right
get
now
it,
unless
right?
they are. I totally understand now that I'm a mother. So that's
You're like,
awesome.
let's not do
So
that.
I know, seriously. So what's up with you this week?
So we have been, the tail end of basketball season before our next one. We've just been super crazy busy, and I've been chatting with you a little bit about the my 9-year-old having a little bit of anxiety, as he likes to call it, or stress. So
Mhm.
losing some sleep over that, and obviously delving a little bit into our repertoire on Mommy One Muslim group page to get some feedback and information because quite frankly I don't have all the answers and every kid is different. So I appreciate that we have access to a lot of the resources. So doing some research on that right now, that's been kind of the stress or the focus of my last week is kind of giving him the tools he needs to get through some of these more anxious periods. What about you, Uzma? What have you been up to?
Oh gosh. I'm looking at this video and I'm
I
really
know you've
hating
had a little
myself,
bit of a
but
mental health. I put
yeah,
lipstick on. I
I
because
think it's
somebody
just
had texted me, "You look really pasty in your videos," and I'm like, "Oh my God, let me put some lipstick on." So that's going to be now my
constructive criticism
my
is
my
always
focus
welcome.
every week. Exactly, exactly. We welcome it, and
Yeah.
look, I don't look as pasty this week, so I appreciate that. But I know you've had a
And
little
now
bit
you
of a
have your
mental
professional
health
background.
um, and I have my background. Hello, everybody. So you don't have to see my windows and people coming and going in the back. But I know you and I were touching base on a personal basis and trying to differentiate between our home lives, our mom lives. We have so many different hats that we wear, and provide being able to provide boundaries within ourselves, and so that we can kind of do all the things that we do. How has that been for you? Because I know it's been a little bit of a struggle for you this week.
Yeah, I know when we put a lot on our plates, a lot of times as moms, we get the constructive criticism from other folks that, well, you're doing this to yourself, because I'm trying to straighten this out. We're doing this to ourselves because we have such trouble saying no because there's so many opportunities to do good things and so much work needs to be done that we just keep adding and adding and adding. And so February is already a very short month, and there's a lot going on professionally, personally, and then with the podcast that we're doing. And I'm excited about all of it. I don't want to say no to any of it, but it's a matter of establishing clear and concise boundaries that say, okay, this is when I can do this, and this is when I can do that, and this is when I can clearly not achieve what maybe somebody wants me to do and be able to say no comfortably. And I'm glad that I have you in my life so that we can have those boundary conversations very openly and honestly and set them up and still continue to do work that is important to us and that we're passionate about.
Exactly. Because at the end of the day, we're actually friends first and we want people to know that. So I'm always like, Uzma, like I want to put my friend hat on and not this is not about work. Let's talk about what's going on with you. So I think we developed a really pretty cool system between texting personal stuff and then WhatsApping professional stuff. So we're creating our own internal boundaries, which I think every mom, parent, person needs to be able to do in order to fully function to the best of our abilities. So I love that we were able to have that frank conversation so that we can continue to do good works without like literally falling dead asleep every single night in a coma.
Without burning
So
out.
what is our soapbox moment without burning out? Because we are getting burned out, ladies and gentlemen, as all moms and dads are living the life that we have to live. But what's our soapbox for the week, Uzma?
Our soapbox is democracy officially died. For those of you who followed the impeachment trial, we knew it was going to happen. We could smell it from 10 miles away, shoot, a mile away, that the GOP was not going to find their president guilty of collusion, rigging elections, and of strong arming foreign governments to comply with his personal political gain. We knew it was going to happen. There was one Republican that stood up to one of the two charges against the president, and that was Mitt Romney out of Utah. Go Mitt. So now our job as Muslims, as voters, as participants in what's left of our democracy is to pay attention to the caucuses and make sure that this election finally does its job and picks the right candidate instead of who will inevitably lose to the GOP candidate, which is the current sitting president. And so we need to get behind the right one. My vote is for Bernie. I hope y'all get involved. Make sure you check your voter registration because a lot of our registrations were expunged the last election, even those of us who elected for vote-in or mail-in ballots, we were taken off the list. This happened in Arizona in particular, where voter registration fraud is rampant. It's happening in your states. Please make sure you pay attention and double check your registration, I would say every couple of months until November. And that's our soapbox for the week.
It, and I do have to say, like, I saw a meme this morning which gave me goosebumps that essentially said the appeal process is is coming, it's starting, and you've been called up for jury duty, everybody, and that's Tuesday, November 3rd. So make sure you go and get the vote out, whoever you choose to vote for. This is one of our basic rights that we have as American citizens, and exercising our right to vote is the number one way we can show that. So, Uzma, we are continuing with our topic for the month of February, which is intimacy and creating intimacy in a Muslim household. And I think you have a really good relationship with our next guest coming on, and I would love if you can introduce her to everybody.
Yes, I am super excited to introduce Ustada Saba Sayed, who holds a bachelor's degree in Islamic studies and ijaza in Quranic hifz recitation, which is memorization, in Egypt from Sheikh Mohammed Al-Hamzawi. She works to empower Muslim women through correct teachings of Islam and is a pastoral counselor for marriage, family, women, and youth issues. She's also the author of An Acquaintance, a YA novel that belongs in our bookshelves, so make sure y'all get a copy. She has been involved in the Muslim community since 1995 through her MSA, which is how I know her, and then is founding member of the Texas Dawah Conference, which, if you've never been, is usually during Christmas time in Texas. I want to say in Houston. I have never had the opportunity, unfortunately, to attend, but everybody that goes talks and talks about it. It is like a supreme Islamic knowledge kind of conference. In 2002, Saba organized and hosted the very first Muslim Women's Conference in Houston. She's also a writer for MuslimMattersOrg.org, which is one of the oldest and most cited online resources since 2007. In fact, for articles related to Muslim faith, politics, and current issues with contributors from all over the world, reputable names, and some just household folks that have experiences they want to share. It was actually founded by her husband, Ahmad Sheikh. I always say behind every successful man is a really remarkable woman, and that is Saba. Most important to me about Saba is the fact that, we all grow up learning Quran. Usually, if you're a subcontinental person like we are, we learn to recite very young. And so it wasn't until college, more than 20 years ago, that Saba was my tajweed teacher or my pronunciation teacher and taught me how to recite Surah Fatiha, the opening chapter of the Quran, which we say 17 times a day. So I attribute that to her and my little bit of memorization from the 30th juz or the 30th section of the Quran. I attribute to Saba and her teaching during our university days. So jazakallah khair for that, and welcome to the show, Saba.
Welcome, Saba. Thank you so much for, with all the accolades, I'm just so excited that you're on the show today. Coming from, where are you calling in from today? Because let's just say we had to jump through some hoops to get you on this show. Where are you today, Saba?
Assalamu alaikum. First of all, let me thank you guys for having me over today. Um, I am right now in the Middle East. I'm in Qatar. So I'm 8 hours ahead of you guys. It's my night time, and I will be straight going to bed after this.
Perfect.
Thanks for staying
So
up
I
for
definitely
us.
appreciate that. Exactly. We know how that is. We know how that is.
Yeah,
So, Saba,
yeah,
how
and
long have
I
you
do
been
have
an
a
expat?
5-year-old, but it's fine. Uh, it's gonna be 11 years this summer.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
wow.
Yeah, yeah.
She's been
Yeah,
away
but I'm
for a
moving
while.
back. I'm moving back this summer. Yeah, yeah. This summer is.
For good? Oh,
Yep, I'm
nice.
coming home.
Is that because your daughter's at Harvard
Allah,
now?
yes.
Yay. Oh my goodness. And
Um, well, two of the kids went back, so I do want to keep the siblings together, especially the younger one, the 5-year-old one. Um, I think the kids, the siblings together, they built so many memories, and I don't want
yes,
the younger two to not have their older two around. Yeah.
that's funny that we have a
See, I
similar
keep telling
situation,
Ziba
whereas my older two, go ahead, Uzma.
we all have 4 kids. Like everybody that comes on seems to
Yeah.
have 4 kids. It's like a magic number.
It's a
And in
great number. I
Zeba's
have the two older
situation,
kids and the two younger. It's a very similar situation. I have the two older kids and the two younger kids, and it's very important for us too to try to keep that relationship together. And actually, my son is in the stage right now where he is looking for colleges, and he is basing it on how close in proximity he can be, so that he can kind of still come home on the weekends and see his siblings when the time comes. And we didn't ask him to, but we appreciate that that is something he's looking into moving forward. So I love that you're doing that as well, Zeba.
Yeah. Um, yeah, it was good to send them away. I think it helped them mature in many ways. They started appreciating the family a lot more. So
Yes.
that was a good experience to be away from them for a while. But this is too far away. It's like a 16-hour flight.
And so now
So
everyone's moving back.
at least, yeah,
So now,
yeah.
so now we're going to kind of get into the meat of what it is that we have you on for. And essentially, it's about the Islamic perspective of sexual intimacy. Uzma tells me that you actually teach a 21, is it like a 21 course class about
Um,
this particular topic? Can you explain a little bit about what it is that you teach specifically?
well, I do workshops on intimacy and also um, on the female sexuality. But then recently we did like a series of videos, and in those videos we took different topics and we tried to make them like a short. It's not a lecture; it's like a discussion. So like about 10 minutes. Each video is 10 minutes long. It's a separate topic, something related to either intimacy, or it's about like female sexuality, because to be honest, female sexuality is perhaps one of the most misunderstood topic, not only among Muslims. I think,
Yes.
I believe, also like in every faith, it's just misunderstood. So
No, why do you
what
think
we
that
did
is?
is we
Why do you think we have a little bit
go
of a
ahead.
lag, everybody, because she is in Qatar. So I just wanted to let everybody know that from a video perspective, there is a little bit of a lag. But like, why do you think, I totally 100% agree with you that there is this huge misconception. We don't want to talk about it. It's a taboo topic. Why do you think cross culturally that is the case, where people don't want to talk about female sexuality?
Um, so we did some research, going back. The first webinar I hosted on this topic was actually, I was just looking back at the dates, was exactly 6 years ago in 2014. And to prepare for that webinar, we researched from the both European perspective and also the Eastern perspective. And what I learned is, going back almost 50, 75 years ago, when there was this belief in Europe that women don't even possess a soul, So when when something doesn't even have a soul, how can it feel anything else? So hence, no desires, no lust, no sexual desires, no need to sexually satisfy. That's where the concept, I think, originated from, and that we can dig deeper. That why was there even a concept that do women have souls or not? Which you could call, like the endocentric concept. And it's funny because I don't know if you have watched this movie or not. It's called Hysteria, and it deals basically with that particular topic, that the for the non-Muslims, why did they believe at one point that women don't have any sexual desires, hence there's no need to sexually satisfy them. Then in the East, honestly, I don't know where it originated from, but the concept in the East is that sex is for men. It's a duty for women. It's bad, and the good women, they don't desire sex. They don't think about sex. They don't want sex, and it's something that's only ever desired or thought about by women who don't, basically prostitutes. So when I deal specifically with the Muslim crowd, this is the challenge that we face is the years and years and years of brainwashing among women that sex is not meant for women. It's meant for men. It's a chore and a duty for women. Yeah.
But what's the Islamic perspective on a woman's desire and fulfillment of that desire? Like, what's her right?
The Islamic perspective is that Islam completely and fully acknowledges and realizes the necessity of female sexual satisfaction. It acknowledges female sexual desires completely. And there are multiple proofs, textual proofs within our religion. The Quran does not specify something, it does not have anything specific, but from the life of our Prophet Muhammad, we learn a lot of narrations where he basically emphasized on how important it is to sexually satisfy women. So if, I'm just going to quote a couple of them. In one of them, like for instance, he advised men that if whenever you reach out to your wives, whenever you have sex with your wife, make sure that there is enough fondling, there's enough kissing, there's enough cuddling, and just foreplaying before engaging into the act itself. Right. And of course, foreplay, why was there an emphasis on foreplay, is because foreplay leads to the female climax. In another narration, he was basically asked about practicing coitus interruptus, which is a very traditional term for basically an early withdrawal. And the Prophet didn't really like it. And it's funny because this is something that I have always heard, this narration being quoted, but it was never explained fully in what sense he didn't like it. You hear the male scholars always quoting this in the sense that, about the birth control or encouraging people to have kids. But then if you continue reading the same narration, the Prophet said in this that make sure that your wife is okay with it and it does not take away from her pleasure, which indicates
like
that
she's climax before you do that.
Have an early. Exactly, because if he's going to withdraw early, she's most likely not going to end up having her climax. So the reason of not liking it or discouraging it is because the woman might take away from her climaxing. And I'm just going to quote one more, so just to make my point is, there's another hadith in Al-Jami, and I'm going to read it from here because it's really thorough. In which the Prophet is saying that when one of you has intercourse with his spouse, then let him be truthful towards her. And then there's an explanation of why he used the word truthful. But then he goes on and he says, then if he fulfills his need before her need is fulfilled, let him not rush her until she is fulfilled. So I think it's pretty specific, and they cannot be more
Yeah.
direct and more specific about this, that it is a man's duty, basically. And one of the reasons why the Prophet used the word truthful is because it was an indication of being truthful to his proclaimed love for her, is that he sexually satisfies her.
And that's actually one of the
That's
grounds for
pretty.
divorce, right? When a woman can request divorce in Islam is if she's not sexually satisfied.
Oh,
I've
really?
known a
She
couple
I
of
didn't
people
know
who
can,
did
but
this.
that.
Like
here's
So
she.
the,
yeah,
yeah.
Really? Wow, that's interesting. So that goes to show you like how much right, quote unquote, rights that Muslim women have within a marriage that I don't think a lot of like even Muslim counterparts, let alone our non-Muslim counterparts, really know that we have specific rights within our marriage, and apparently even being sexually satisfied is one of them. And the fact that it can be grounds for divorce tells you how much of an importance it can play within a relationship.
Right. Now,
did you have a
textually,
comment on
yes,
that,
it
Saba?
is a completely. I'm so sorry, I'm lagging. So if I start talking over you guys, is because I think I'm, I don't
Absolutely.
know,
It's
I'm a
totally fine.
little, I think, few seconds behind. Yes. Um, yes, it's there has to be no other reason for a woman to ask for divorce if that's the only reason she has, that she's not sexually satisfied. And we know that in the time of the Prophet, there was a woman who came to the Prophet and she complained about her not being sexually satisfied. And then the Prophet called her husband and he said, give me some time, let me work on my issue, whatever issue he had. And the Prophet granted him some time, with the permission of his wife. He failed to, recover from whatever he was going through, and then the woman came back to the Prophet, and he granted her a divorce. So, and now we are talking about the companions of the Prophet who were like the best of the people. So it's not like he was mistreating her in any other way. It's not like that she had any other issue with him except that she was sexually dissatisfied, and that was the ground to grant her divorce. Culturally, I just want to point out, because we struggle with this issue a lot among Muslim women, unfortunately, is somewhere at some point culture took over, and culturally parents or the elders or the society members or the so-called religious clerics, they started discouraging women from asking for divorce based on this, because their, their first objection would be, he's a good provider, he's a good husband, he's a good supporter, he's a good father. So basically, just be patient, be a good woman, be a pious wife. But Islamically, religiously, piety is not defined by how a woman is able to live with a unsatisfied sexual life.
And the truth of the matter is, you're the expert, Saba. When you have the sexual intimacy within a relationship, that creates a deeper intimacy within a marriage. Do you find that to be truthful or the case in the couples that you've dealt with or you've worked with?
Yes, definitely, because sex is one of the languages of love. So when a couple is married happily and they're, they don't have any other issues going on with them, the whole point of sexual intercourse is basically to, it's one of the manifestations of the love that the husband and the wife share with each other. So, the term making love basically comes from that concept, is that when two people love each other and they're married to each other, they make love to each other. And it's a far more deeper bond than just, like a mechanical a function that happens between a husband and a wife where one of the spouses is left unsatisfied.
Right. Because you're physically, for a moment in time, one person.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit, Saba, about the feminist revolution? And I know I've heard you say you're not a feminist, but I'm going to be clear, I totally am. But I wanted to hear what your thoughts were on the feminist revolution and the sexual independence of women and how it's applicable within a Muslim marriage. Or is it?
Okay, I said I'm not a feminist because I personally don't like labels, and I think Uzma, you probably would recall why I hate labels now because of what happened 20, 25 years ago. But I mean, people call me feminist. They label me feminist maybe because I am really outspoken about female rights and women's, their rights and their place in the society. Excuse me, because I'm just recovering from a really bad cold and flu, so my voice is going to be on and off. The revolution, I guess I'm gonna say, there is this a term. There was some lecture by a male scholar that I was listening to, and they were basically calling it a feminist sexual revolution that just recently started. But I disagree with it, and I have talked about it in the videos that are posted in the Loving Muslim Marriage series. This is not a new phenomena that's happening. This is not happening because women have somehow, newly found their place in their sexual relationship with their spouses. No, this is a desire, this is a need that was put into by our Creator from the moment we were created, and hence that's why He has recognized it. The God, the Creator, He has acknowledged it and recognized it, and has made it obligatory upon the husband to satisfy, sexually satisfy his wife. So I disagree that this is something, feminist revolution or something newly. This has always existed, and perhaps that's why there was not any a strong need for women to demand this at the time of the Prophet, for instance, because it was like all other needs, like the woman's need of being fed or being clothed or having a house. So this was something like common sense, and somehow, somewhere, the culture. I want to say that perhaps the Indian Pakistanis, the Desi crowd, adopted it from Hinduism, because Hinduism also believed at one point that women don't have souls, and that's why they were. Like if you dig down deeper in their traditional religion, that the wives were to be burned with their husbands, and all that stuff. So maybe that's where, when the Muslims were living alongside with Hindus, maybe this is the concept they adapted at that time, and then the culture basically took over, and people forgot about the whole the female rights of their sexual satisfaction. Female, having their basically one of their fundamental human rights, like the need to have food, the need to sleep, the need to wear clothes. This goes in the same category, is that they have sexual needs, they have sexual desires that need to be satisfied. This is not something that only belonged to men. So just like all the other rights that were taken away from women and Muslim women, I think this is one of those. I don't know if that answered your question, Uzma. You ask me again if it didn't.
No, I think it totally does. And I agree. I think it's not just other religions or other traditions where Islam was spread, that combined with the very Eurocentric understanding of women and their sexuality, their personhood, even their humanity, as you spoke to, and then the post-colonial era, all of that affecting Muslims across the globe and changing the authentic tenets and teachings of fundamental Islam, which is such a scary term in the media, fundamentalist Islam now, but fundamentalist Islam gave us these rights 1500 years ago, and it was outlined very clearly during the life of Muhammad, and I think perverted through time and through cultural baggage, which is why I love that we were born and raised in this country where we can separate the two and we can understand the authentic teachings of Islam like free of, all of that culture. Now,
Cultural
the
bias.
caveat is I think our kids have less of that than we do, because we still had parents who were immigrants who brought along some of that cultural baggage. So can you speak to some of that cultural baggage that our parents dealt with and possibly passed on to us?
Yeah, I mean, I come from the same background, and we both have Indian Pakistani parents, so hence the same baggage that we were raised with. Um, and you're right that our children don't have that baggage. And right now, I might not have seen that as clearly as one of the benefits of living overseas for past 11 years, is that I really learned to appreciate the Islam we have in the U.S., specifically in the U.S. I'm not even going to say in Europe, and I don't want to prolong the discussion, but yes, it's organic in America. It's purified from the cultural beliefs. There is a more clear vision about what is Islam and what is culture, because I see a lot of it here now, living in the Middle East, and now that I make frequent trips to Pakistan as well. So I just see culture and a little bit of religion here and there. So yeah, our kids are growing up. They have this advantage of filtering, and whatever you might want to call social media has its whatever negatives, but there are a lot of positives also that has also helped filter out religion from the culture. And and because you and I, we were able to separate the religion from the culture on our own as we grew older, and as we were exposed to the more raw, more organic Islam in US. I think we were able to deliver it better to our kids as well.
So speaking of which, talking about kids, you're also a mom of four, and we get this question all the time. How, given your expertise, do you broach the concept of sex with your children? How did you introduce it to them? And it seems like you probably have an open relationship. One, and two, the other question we get a lot is, okay, I'm just going to say it out there and you're going to see me turn red, but what is the concept of masturbation in Islam, and where do you stand on that?
So, as for sexual education for the children, I actually wrote a whole series of articles about 12 years ago. It's posted on Muslim Matters. It is called Sexual Education, and it's not as thorough as I wanted it to be, but it gives a general idea of how you can approach your kids with the sexual education. And I have always been a believer and a very outspoken supporter of parents giving the sexual education to their children themselves, not rely on anybody else, not even any family member or teacher
Yes.
or anyone else or an imam. It's your job. You're the parent. You give birth to them. This is one topic that you have to deliver yourself. Don't trust anyone else with this topic. And so yes, I gave them to my daughter, to my son, and now to my third daughter. I taught them about sex, sexual stuff, desires, their periods, menstruation, wet dreams, whatever you might, there is.
Yes.
I taught them
I'm sure they
myself.
enjoy that conversation with you.
No, the first conversation
It's always
was always
awkward, right? It's
awkward, and
always awkward.
yes, it is.
I have
Yeah,
two
it's
sons
always
coming. Oh
awkward,
my
but then they
gosh.
kind of started opening up. Yeah. I always straight up take them back to the Quran, always, and just like open up the verses where Allah talks about sex, and like it's okay, like exposing your private parts to your spouse and all that stuff. And I'm like, look, this is how God made it. This is how it is. It's not gross. It's not disgusting. It's something that that's there, and it's a part of life. It's a part of you. And even though you might not feel it right now, even though the girls are gross or the boys are gross right now, but at some point you are gonna want that. So that's how it starts, and then Basically, it's breaking the ice. Once that's done, then they just keep coming back with their questions and stuff. Um, and then as they grew older, I actually did not feel the necessity or the urgency of teaching my kids how important it is to understand female sexuality and the sexual satisfaction until 6 years ago, when there was like a lot of seminars and classes were being given in especially in the US by some of the from the male perspective, and a lot of things that were said about female sexuality were completely and totally like bizarre. And I was reached out by a lot of sisters, by a lot of girls in the US. That's what like basically encouraged me to do the first webinar that's posted on Muslim Matters back in 2014. And then I basically sat down my kids and I told them, I'm like, look, I don't know that this is a misconception, but here it is. Female have sexual desires. And I told my son, you better satisfy your wife. And I told my daughter that you better demand this satisfaction from your husband. And don't feel shy about it. This is a part of your life. Just like if your spouse is going to keep you hungry and you're going to demand food, this is exactly like that. And I think this is how we should empower our children, we should empower our daughters, and we should educate our sons. That's our job as parents.
I'm loving that. I'm loving that so much. I'm sweating bullets that you're putting that on our shoulders, like as a conversation we have to have. But I'm really appreciating that experience so that I can take it to my kids, my one daughter and my three boys. How are you feeling, Zaiba?
No, I mean, 2 out of the 4 have already gotten the talk, and I agree with Seba. I mean, I've spoken about this in the past. We're a very open family in the sense that if you're old enough to ask me, you're old enough to get the full nitty-gritty of, and I don't hold back. I mean, I really just don't. I agree with you, Seba. Like, you need to talk about it. And when your kids feel comfortable enough to come to you with these types of, in general, quote unquote, uncomfortable topics, I feel like, perhaps the communication is open. And we do talk about it openly, sometimes a little too openly, whereas my daughter asks me very specific questions and I try to keep it in generic terms. But, I feel like in general, it should be talked about. And, there should be no stigma attached to it, because in a halal setting, it's a very beautiful thing. And we need to take our own cultural bias away from it so that we can really benefit from what the intention of it was supposed to be.
And I think
And
Saba,
I'm going to be very honest with all the parents to be. Go ahead.
no, you go first. You go.
Okay. I was just saying that I'm going to be very honest and very blunt to all the parents out there. Don't fool yourself into thinking that if you are just going to somehow evade the question or somehow, use hidden terms or something just for your own, that's basically parents just satisfying themselves. It's all available out there on the internet, in the books, among the friends, on the TV. There's no way anything is hidden anymore. You name it, it's out there. Oral sex, masturbation, even BDSM, those practices of chaining and stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's in young adult books that are being read by like 10 or 11-year-old girls. I just read a series along with my daughter, and my daughter just turned 13. And I was just like, oh my God, it's not even considered like the sexual rating. If I was just going to look at the sexual rating of the book, it's not even there. The book has everything in it, in a like not in explicit terms, and that's probably why it's not like being warned at as like there's sexual content in it, but everything is there. So the kids already know it. They know more than the parents know. So it's just best to just openly talk about it.
I agree with that. And that
So
also takes away the stigma too, right? Like it takes away the stigma. It puts the power back into their own hands when they can control their narrative. And if they can talk about it with their parents openly, you can, take away that negativity that sometimes is associated because it's not supposed to be a negative thing. It's not, you know what I'm saying? So I agree with you. Quite frankly,
Yeah.
they have it in their palm of their hands if they have cell phones. Let's just be real. So I would much rather be able to go to my kids and say, and by the way, pornography and these types of things, also talking openly about them, because guess what? They do have access to that, whether we want to admit it to ourselves or not. And they have to understand and know that that's not necessarily what women want, or and we have to have those frank conversations with them.
I have two things.
Mhm.
I
And
grew up being
it's a big
lied to, so
misconception
whenever I
that
had
mom.
those
Go ahead. Sorry.
when I would ask questions, it was kind of like what Saba, speaking to your point, that parents are just satisfying their own probably personal anxieties about these conversations. And so I got lied to a lot. And I realized after I got married, it's like, why did you lie? Why didn't you just
That's
tell me
not
the
what
truth? Like,
happens.
what did you think I wasn't gonna
That's
what?
not how it
That's
works.
like you should have told me to go look it up in a book then if you didn't want to tell me. But like lying, I spent
Can,
three,
can
four
I
years thinking
can
this is
I
true and it
share a
wasn't.
story? This can I share a story to that? I'm just gonna lay it out there. I was in first grade, still remember this, and a boy kissed me on the playground. Yes, scandalous, everybody, but it happened. I thought
First
I was
grade.
pregnant and I was gonna be a parent in first grade because we were taught like if this happens, this, and I literally was up all night being like, what am I gonna do? I'm 6 years old thinking I'm gonna be a mom, and I had no idea, and we didn't have that conversation, and it was so much unnecessary stress. But so speaking to your point, like we were lied to a lot and as a result I had a lot of misinformation.
Yeah, I mean, I had the same situation where, Saba, in the past, we've had an episode on sexual trauma, and I was very straightforward about, sexual abuse happening to me. And I thought growing up that I had to marry the person who assaulted me, like until I was 13. So from 4 to 13, I thought I had to marry this person because that's what happens in the movies, right? Guy rapes girl has to marry him. And no, I hadn't been raped, but I didn't know the difference between rape and what happened to me. So I thought, oh, this is the person I have to marry. And when I was 13 and had sex ed for the first time, I told my mom, is there any way I can get out of this? And that's when she was like, are you crazy? You don't have to marry that jerk. What's wrong with you? So, again, it's just all these things that we don't understand because we don't have the right conversations. And I kind of wanted to circle back to the part of the question that Zeba asked you about masturbation, Islamic perspectives on it, and then last week we talked about sexual devices in the bedroom. Could you speak to those two things?
Yes, definitely. Sorry, I forgot to talk about masturbation. So masturbation, basically, real quick, from a fiqh perspective, there are three opinions. So first opinion, and I'm just going to say it not in any particular order. The first opinion that it's forbidden unconditionally. Under no circumstances it is allowed. I don't know any proof for that. What is the proof that the scholars quote over this? But this is an opinion that we had heard initially, and that's what we thought. We all believed that that was the only opinion. But there are other opinions. The second opinion is that it's forbidden conditionally. So if there is a chance that by performing masturbation, a person can save themselves from a bigger haram, a bigger problem, then it is allowed. And then the third opinion is that masturbation is allowed. There is no proof textually that it is forbidden. And to be honest, there is no proof textually that it is forbidden. And you can see that I am of the third opinion or inclined to the second opinion, but I have not found any reason to believe that it is forbidden unconditionally. So the third opinion, even one of the very famous scholars, Imam Ahmed, even said that it's like basically, how you clean your nose is just like that. as long as there is no pornography or any other clearly forbidden outlets are involved. So, and that goes both for men and women, because you have to understand that all the rulings in Islam are equally for men and women together, except otherwise is specified. So if there's a certain ruling which is different for women, like for instance, some law or something, then it's always specified. But if there's always just one general ruling, then it applies to both, which for a lot of people, shocking that women could even desire masturbation, because according to them, women don't have sexual desires. But no, they do. So yeah, and for women, if they want to use any devices for that reason, there is no prohibition. And that goes back to the rule of the thumb, which any student of knowledge would tell you from any sect of Islam. There's a rule of thumb. When it comes to acts of worship, everything is forbidden unless otherwise it has been shown to us through the Prophet or, through the textual proof that it's okay. For any other action that is not an act of worship, it's allowed. So the general ruling, the first ruling that it takes for any other thing which is not like a prayer or like an act of worship, is that it's allowed unless otherwise there's a textual proof to prohibit it. So whenever we talk about masturbation, or we talk about sex toys, or we talk about different positions of sex or whatever, the general ruling, the first rule of thumb is that it's allowed unless otherwise specified. So the only two things that are not allowed is the anal sex and the sex during menstruation or postpartum bleeding. Other than that, any sexual act is allowed, as long as halal means are used.
And
And two
as long
consenting
as
parties.
both partners, yeah, exactly. I was going to say, as long as both partners are consenting, then I definitely agree with you. That was definitely eye-opening and has answered a lot of questions that people have put forth, including my own, to be honest with you, in no particular order.
And I'm just going to add a little
So
bit more thing to this. Is that it's the same ruling that takes for oral sex as well. There is no textual proof that prohibits oral sex. So that's allowed. It's for both men and women. It's completely allowed. There's no prohibition. And so as the other practices which our youth ask a lot, the BDSM, the role playing or whatever, is that all of that is allowed. And I'm done.
There's so many women right now that are breathing a sigh of relief. My feminist heart is really happy. And I'm like, Saba, why didn't you teach this class 20 years ago? Because you would have saved me so much grief in my 20s.
well, that's why we're doing this
Uzma, when you
now,
said
right?
this,
We're
I was just
dispelling
going to
some of
say
those
that
things.
we have,
Go ahead, Saba.
like, from our age group and from your age group, I deal with so much trauma with the Muslim, especially, among the Muslim couples, the intimacy issues, because the lies you were talking about, you're not the only one. A lot of Indian, Pakistani, and even Arab girls were lied about the whole sexual stuff. And they were traumatized with their intimate life with their husbands, and hence the problems. And it takes multiple sessions to just even get them to start thinking that sex is not bad, that it's not going to make them shameless or what do you call it, immodest, if they actually participate in the intimate life with their husbands. So the effect of it are enormous, and unfortunately it affects not just their intimate life, but their, to some extent, even their faith as well. And I'm hoping and I'm praying that our coming generation is a lot better than what we were when we got married.
Amin.
I mean, that's definitely a testament to people like yourselves that are doing the work behind the scenes to kind of provide us the resources and the education, so that that does happen. So I definitely appreciate you on the show today, Saba, especially because I know it's very late for you in Qatar. Uzma, thank you for making this happen, and I think a lot of people are going to have a very fun Valentine's Day this week. So they can take some of this knowledge and go forward with from there. But we're going to probably in our show notes have your 21 videos. Are we going to do that, Uzma? And then links to Saba's book as well, and where to contact her if you need some more further intimacy work between you and your partner. She is the go-to person. So thank you so much, Saba, for being on the show today. And inshallah, everybody has a fabulous Valentine's Day.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Thank
Thanks
you for
again,
having
Saba.
me
This was
over,
awesome.
and I'm really, yeah.
Any final words,
I
Saba?
really appreciate you
Ooh,
guys
she's done.
doing this, and I really appreciate this whole your group, you know, your Facebook page, your Instagram. I really appreciate that. Keep up the good work, whatever you girls are doing. I'm pretty sure that it's helping a lot of parents out there.
Inshallah.
Thank you. Really
That's all we
appreciate
want.
it. Assalamu alaikum. Until next time. That's all we want. Until next time. This is Zaiba with
Assalamu
Mommy
alaikum.
Well Muslim. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.